Good evening, everybody. This is Robin with another edition of Horror Pop After Midnight. And my guests tonight are filmmakers Jose and Clare Cooney. How's it going, guys?
Good.
Good.
Thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thank you for having
Thanks
us.
for having us.
All right, before we get into some fun stuff, Claire, you just got back from Sundance Film Festival. What was it like for your first time going there, and what was going through your mind when you were showing the film there?
So our film did not screen at Sundance.
I thought it did.
Very clear here.
Okay,
no,
oops, I'm wrong. Sorry.
You're fine. No, yeah. So we premiered at Fright Fest in the UK, and we played at the opening night of Chicago International Film Festival in the United States. Played at Scream Fest, at Nightmares, all kinds of awesome film festivals. But we are done with our run, at least domestically. I think we might play at a couple more in the UK. But we are done with our film festival run, and we're releasing in like a week and a half. So I was at Sundance to support Friends Films and promote the release of our upcoming film.
Oh, what's your upcoming film?
Departing Seniors. I'm just there to promote the
Okay.
release. That's good.
Got you.
Yeah.
I got the communication mixed up. I'm never bad this way, but at least we got it correct. All right, Jose, I was reading an article in Variety about departing, seniors, and they're saying it's like Scream for the next generation. And when I saw the film, it did have a unique take and style about it. How'd you come up with the script to make it unique from any other indie horror teen slasher flick?
Yeah. Well, obviously, being compared to Scream is like such a huge honor. I love Scream. It's one of my favorites, and Kevin Williamson is like one of my favorite screenwriters. So the fact that his name comes up in the same sentence as mine is like really, really quite an honor. But I'm somebody who looked at a movie like Scream, which was very much kind of a love letter to the genre, and was in conversation with the other movies that it was like, had that sort of self-aware meta theatricality to it, that was really refreshing when it came out and really kind of reinvigorated the slasher genre. And I figured there's no reason why I shouldn't be able to do the same thing now, especially making that a little bit more contemporary with regards to the sort of characters that you're seeing. I'm a gay Mexican-American man, and I had never seen someone like myself in a story like this, and definitely not in a way that felt honest to who I am as a person and my experience. So I figured, if nothing else, one of the most refreshing lenses that we could take on this sort of familiar style and tone was through the representation of the characters, and really kind of putting queer BIPOC characters up front and center, but not in a way that feels like it's an attempt to at messaging, or it's trying to do something like that's the point, because that's not really the point. I'm a horror fan. I'm a horror filmmaker. I love the genre. It's one of the things that I spend the most time thinking about and talking about and enjoying. So I really wanted to make sure that was the priority.
Yeah, the character Javier, the main character, reminds me a little bit about you. He reminds me of a Mexican-American Johnny from The Dead Zone. I love how you made that into like a Dead Zone intake on the film about it, because I loved the original film, and I loved the TV series with Anthony Michael Hall, and I love how you did the fresh intake, putting a little bit of the Dead Zone vibe in the film with Javier.
Yeah, I love Stephen King. I'm an avid Stephen King reader. I've got a huge spreadsheet of all of his books I'm working my way through. Man's got so many novels. So he's somebody that I absolutely adore, is a huge influence on me. I've been reading him since I was literally a child. So in regards to other ways to kind of freshen things up, I think crossover and merging of these different elements is a big way to do it. And the Dead Zone, it was a huge influence. I mean, obviously there are references to it in the script, and the fact that reads, aside from the obvious call-outs, is great, that you can kind of see Johnny in that character. I mean, Johnny's such like a likable character, so he's very much an everyman. So being able to kind of put that onto Javier is really important, because, in a lot of ways, you look at him and he seems like he'd be different. part of the point is that he doesn't really fit in with the people at his school, but he still kind of is that everyman. So yeah, it's great that that came across.
Oh, it sure did. Now, Claire, how'd you become part of directing the film? And I love the cinematography shots on certain angles, on certain scenes, how you would do the zoom ins and close out, especially the scene where you see the killer, standing outside of Javier's bedroom. It kind of gave me a creepy Michael Myers feel. How you panned that shot. That was just a beautiful shot.
Oh, thank you. So I got involved because I've known Jose for years and years. We were in the same Chicago kind of theater film scene together, and he mentioned that one of his scripts was going to be produced, which sounded so exciting. And I had kind of done a lot of short films in the indie world, and I was very used to stretching a dollar and being scrappy and making things work, and really being kind of specific about discovering new talent, something I think I've always been passionate about. I come from Chicago. I worked in casting there, and so I'm really specific about like the actors I choose to work with, and again, like the camera folks I work with. My cinematographer Jason Chu is really brilliant. I've worked with him now 3 times. So we had a kind of Jose brought me on board for this, and that was such a treat. It's my first feature, and so it was really fun to collaborate with people I knew on a genre that I've not done before. I've done thriller, I've done suspense, but I'd never done horror comedy. So it was like a really fun way to jump in. Jose sent me this long list of references with all these different Easter eggs, all these different movies, all that kind of stuff. And so it was such a treat for me to kind of really just like nerd out and explore the genre. In terms of the choices for the cinematography, Jason and I, it was absolutely sharing each of our own instincts, and we have, I think, a very similar visual eye, but we also wanted to make sure we were kind of being faithful to those references, those Easter eggs that Jose sent along. So it was very much a collaboration where we'd have an idea, we'd have an instinct, a direction we thought we wanted things to go in, and then we'd be like, oh, yeah, that's perfect, because that actually steals from Halloween, or that actually is a reference to, even Shaun of the Dead or Carrie, these little nuggets of just the style of the way the camera moves. I think that these things become used so often because they're effective and because they are coming from a place of instinct in the horror genre and in the comedy genres. So it was a natural kind of collaboration.
Yeah. How'd you get the actor to play Javier? I mean, he nailed that to the T. He did a solid performance on how he portrayed the character, his mannerisms, his quirkiness, and how he got overexcited in certain stressful situations. So was he your yeah? So was he your idea for that role of Javier?
I mean, he was my ideal. When we saw that tape come in, I think we all kind of were like, oh, heck yeah. Because I think it was, I'll let Jose speak to this, but I think the character is very much informed by Jose and Jose's high school experience. So there's a little bit of kind of casting for a younger version of Jose, but also allowing this character to be fully himself. And he needs to have the dramatic chops, he needs to have comedic chops, he needs to feel like he's kind of like a badass who didn't give a shit what people think, but also at the same time, he's kind of a nerd, and he's also a high school kid. He's going to have this moments of insecurity and all that kind of stuff. So it was a very delicate balance to find someone who brought a very natural quality to it, which is something I love. I like to buy in and really feel for someone and I think that's how we start to get our hearts involved in stories, is if we can really buy into the characters and the relationships and they feel really true and genuine. And so Ignacio, who plays the role, he's just naturally very funny and quirky while remaining grounded, while taking risks. So it was, I felt very lucky that we found him.
I mean, yeah, he was phenomenal, Jose. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, he's great. To Claire's point, I think part of that is a testament to Claire's work as a director, being able to work with these actors and bring out such an amazing performance. And the truth is, I'm an actor as well as a writer and all the rest, and I watch these horror movies and I'm like, what you're asking actors to do is very hard. Just across the board, to sell the believability that allows an audience to connect with these characters in the highest, most extreme stakes beyond the normal. It could very easily become melodramatic, or it can become too much, or it's not enough. It's a very hard thing in and of itself. And then with this script, their language is tricky. Like, it's a lot of words. It's very quippy. It's fast. It's stylized. And that's a hard thing for an actor to do. The comedic elements are almost harder to do in some respects than the dramatic elements. So being able to find an actor who can do all of that so well, but is also the right age, and who is also Hispanic, who also fits my imagined version of myself as a teenager. A lot of boxes had to be checked, and we got really lucky that Ignacio sent a tape in, and it was one of the first ones where you heard him handle the language, and I heard it. Like, it sounded right. And the fact that Claire was able to work with him to bring out the performance you see in the movie, I mean, it was a really kind of perfect storm of wonderful coincidences. Yeah.
I remember the very first day we were filming, it was a long scene on the grass with Javier and Bianca. So it was the first time that Ignacio and Iran got to actually really work together and actually really spend time together. And I remember Jose and Deshana, who was the producer, we all kept just like looking at each other being like, oh my God, it's so good. Like the dialogue tried to really, really pop because they had such great chemistry. And Ignacio was just making these really fun choices, and I remember we kept just being like, yes. It was like a really exciting first day.
Yeah, the actress Macy Murlock, who plays Jenny, she got under my skin. She reminded me of one of the girls I grew up with going in high school. Those type of girls that really got under my skin, and she did that role to the T. It just reminded me of going back to high school, witnessing another Jenny in my life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Absolutely. She very much is like Reese Witherspoon in Election kind of vibes, I think. And it's funny because she's like a mean girl, but she's also a really smart mean girl, which doesn't always happen. And so I think even that character, even though it's a cliche in some ways, I think it's also a combination of a variety of archetypes that don't always pair together in film, which I think is really fun. And Maisie came in and just like destroyed the role. She was so good. She brought this really odd, unhinged kind of manic quality to it that no one else did. And we were like, we had a lot of tapes coming for that role. And I remember we just kept being like, there's something about Maisie. We got to cast her. Yeah.
Yeah. She just got the character in a lot of ways and was able to bring herself to the script and make choices that were very much grounded in the writing, but were still surprising. Like the one that I always think about, like there's a scene in the lunchroom where the line is written just like, Javier thinks he's such and such and such. And in her audition tape, she said, Javier. And it was just so right on because it does get under your skin. And it's the sort of microaggression or overt aggression that I experienced throughout my life, and that is very specific to the dynamics of these characters and who they are with regards to race and all these other things. And she sells it, and she's the sweetest person in real life, pretty much the opposite of that character. But to see and hear a lot of people have that sort of like visceral flashback to their own high school experiences is exactly the point. And I mean, the fact that we're able to introduce somebody who serves as a villain in the movie in so many different ways, that gets that sort of response from the audience is really exciting.
Hey, like I said, she did good. I mean, she had to been a method actor or hung out with some bully girls or something just to play off of them. Like I said, she really nailed it. And the cool thing I like about the film, it kept you guessing, trying to find out who the killer is. I like how you would lure the viewer to all of them, and it's like, is it that person or is that person? And I love how it kept me on the edge of my seat. I love how you starts off like a real slow burn, and then it starts really picking up, and you're finally trying to figure out who the real killer is, which I liked about how you wrote it.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, it's an interesting element of this sort of subgenre, right? The slasher subgenre, that really kind of is introduced by Scream, or re-looked at in Scream at least, the notion of the whodunit, right? You know, you look at something like Nightmare on Elm Street or the Halloween franchise or Friday the 13th, you know who those killers are. Like, there's no mystery about who's behind the mask. But Scream is one of the ones that is really interested in the, like, this is somebody you know. This is in your circle. This is somebody you see every day. The suspicion and the paranoia surrounding that is a fun tool and dynamic to get to play with. But the other thing about this genre is that writing for, and this is something I only kind of learned in retrospect, but you're writing for an audience that is coming at you from a lot of different places and contexts. Like, a lot of horror, slasher fans might come in, and the whodunit element is like, oh yeah, I've seen a million of these. I know exactly what's going on here right off the bat. And I'm one of those people, honestly, most of the time. But then it's sometimes easy to forget, like, oh, well, there are a lot of people coming at it that this might be their first horror movie, or this might be their first look at this sort of specific subgenre, and they can have fun with that whodunit element, and it's not obvious to them, and the mystery functions exactly how it's supposed to, and it can be that for all of these different people. And I think, again, another testament to Claire's work as a director, being able to really keep those balls in the air and keep the tension and the suspicion and the looks between the actors and the characters and the focus on the different props in the right moments is what really makes that work.
I remember one time we did a feedback screening with just like 10 to 12 people, and at the end of the night, I think I asked everyone, I think it was a question saying, like, when did you find out who the killer was, or something like that, and then, like, raise your hand if you knew who the killer was at this point or that point, right? And about half the people knew very early on, like in the first act, and about half people had no idea to the very end. And I remember Jose was like, perfect. He was like, that's the perfect exact. He was like, that's exactly right. He was like, so people here that, like, are pros that will just enjoy the ride of it being kind of predictable and, like, paying homage, and then the people that are, like, totally take my surprise. He's like, that's exactly what I want. And I was like, okay, good. Because I was like, if we're hoping for everyone to have no idea, will disappoint some people. But I do think it's just like you said, it's a different kind of subgenre. It depends on how familiar you are with the tropes.
I totally agree, because I was thinking the same way when I was watching it. You know, what you just said, I was like, I bet it's this person or this person, you know, and, you know, I'm trying to talk to you guys. I'm not trying to spoil it for anybody because anybody hasn't seen it. That's why I'm asking. Yeah, exactly. That's why I'm asking these certain questions, because I'm not going to say who the killer is or this and this, you know. I just, you know, I just think it was a fun film. The mask. Who made that drama mask?
Yeah, Lalo Ayala designed and created it. It was so cool. I mean, as a slasher horror fan, the ability to have our own mask created was so. It's like one of the things that I nerd out about the most. And getting to, I remember, you know, because he molded it. Like, we sent him all of these different reference images, and, you know, a killer's mask is their calling card. There are so many different ways that it functions. It has to be the right amount of minimalistic and the right amount of specific and unique, and all of these different elements, and paying homage to the right references while also being its own thing. And it's such an iconic thing. He was so great about working, I mean, you know, taking in all of the feedback and molding it and changing it. Claire, obviously, you probably have more insight to the specific direction.
Yeah. Well, I remember Jose and I, like, had a whole text chain back and forth, just sharing different mask kind of images, and then trying to, between the two of us, narrow in on what ones were most exciting to us. And then we sent it along to Lalo, and then he was working on it up until, like, maybe the morning we started filming. I felt bad because we kept being like, a little more like that, a little more like that, and we finally got it. And then he made a mold of that. And then he made multiple versions because, you know, at one point, one of them gets, I'm not going to say too much, but, like, you know, there's damage done to certain things. We want to make sure we have backup. So it's actually funny. I was just talking to Lalo because he mailed the mask out to us because the film's going to have a theatrical premiere coming up soon. And I really want to have the mask there to take some pictures with at the premiere, but the people, I think it'd be really fun to interact with the mask. And so it just like what they said, it's just it's quite a striking visual and kind of a calling card for the film, and it's part of a long line of films that have that kind of unique mask. It's definitely something I think we're both really proud of, and he did an amazing job creating that mask.
Yeah, and I mean, we both come from the theater, but like I'm a dyed-in-the-wool theater kid. Like theater, especially in Chicago, I was always working on stage as a theater kid. In high school, I was a theater kid. I studied theater in college, so to have like a very unique and specific inspiration and visual motif of that, and then to see it like on the poster or the thumbnail for the trailer, the way that it's just there, it's just like the coolest.
It's very cool. Yeah. No, I mean, I've always had the kind of happiness and the sadness mask hung up. I'd never seen one kind of combined in quite the same way, and so that was really fun to kind of to look at that and develop that together as a team. It definitely scratched that theater itch that we've all had for a long time.
I'm also in the film. I love the kills. The cool thing about the kills, I like them because they were realistic, and I could see, people actually doing that in those certain kills. That's why I like the feel of it, because it felt so realistic and intimate while you're feeling what the victims were going through, which I really liked. The kills were clever.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, those were all in the script, in Jose's script. There were a couple we had to tweak based on kind of like budgetary constraints, location, but actually it's kind of fun because it pushed us to be coming up with even more kind of creative kills. But yeah, those kills were all they're all kind of different. There's not too many. It's not like there's like a signature kill for this villain, which is fun. It allowed us to have a lot of fun variety in terms of the characters' responses to the kills and the kind of locations and the visuals associated with the kills. It gave us a lot of freedom, and it was a lot of fun. And again, it's definitely not a super gore heavy movie. I had a friend say like, "Oh, I can't go with a horror film," and I was like, it's a slasher comedy. Like, you can go, I promise you. She's like, "No, I'm gonna be too scared." And I was like, "This gore will be too much." And I was like, "No, I mean, there'll be moments where if you're kind of used to it, you might get a little spooked, or you might wince. But in general, it's not meant to. It's not one of the ones that's like grotesque and shocking in its gore. It's more about the character's experience of the kill, and that's kind of my background. As I'm still an actor too, but I came up as an actor, and all my films that I'm drawn to are about relationships and emotion and just the internal world. So it was kind of the best way for me, at least, to go into it. And from reading the script, it felt like that was kind of the intention behind the kills that Jose wrote. There was nothing in the script that was like, can we see the inside of his brain? You know what I mean? It's not like that. It was always meant to be about driving the story forward, and a lot of the kills had to do kind of with the characters, that there were often like symbolic kind of moments associated with it. So
yeah.
I mean, I think that it's like all about the intimacy of it, right? No two kill is the same, down to even like the use of weapons. Really, like it's not like a bunch of the machete or the specific knife that Ghostface uses. Like, each one is very unique and tailored not only to the situation but the characters, and that is intentional. I think some early like thoughts, especially with regards to the visions and things like that, I had been inspired by things like Final Destination, and that there's no killer per se in that movie. It's death, so each kill is unique and specific, and it's what makes like the vision connecting of the dots work, because you're trying to be like, okay, well, how does that come into play in this scenario? And yeah, it was fun. It was definitely something that I spent time thinking about.
Yeah, where'd you guys shoot the film? Where'd you shoot the high school? And I loved the theater. That was a beautiful theater. Where'd you shoot those scenes at?
Yeah, we filmed all over Chicago. The exterior of the school and the interior of the school are actually two different high schools. The names are escaping me. Jose, do you know the names of them?
Yeah, so the interiors were Sullivan High School and Rogers Park on the north side. Mm-hmm. The exteriors were Morgan Park Academy on the south side.
Yeah.
Maybe Beverly or something like that. Yeah.
I think so, yeah. And then the theater was the Athenaeum, and that was really hard to find. We were having a hard time finding a theater that was the right look, the right scope and scale, and also was willing to cut us a decent deal because this is an indie film. And so it definitely took us like looking for all our connections and finding it. And then, but when we got it, it was just felt like such a treat. It was the ideal cool theater.
Yeah, and then the pool was at
in Lamont.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Wow. Now let's talk about the film score too. I like the score in the film too. Who choreographed the film score?
Yeah,
Denise. Go ahead. I'll let you talk about it.
No, Denise Ojeda. We were so excited to have Denise because Denise is a female Mexican American film composer based in LA, and one of my things. Obviously, I wrote the script. And a man of color, a person of color, a queer man, and our lead producer, Deshauna, is a black female producer. And from jump, both her and I, she's the first person that, between the two of us, started making this a reality. We were like, we want female creators, we want people of color, we want queer folks as much as possible behind the camera, making decisions, being creative, being able to really, make the most of this opportunity. And I very, very, it was kismet, before, I think it might even have been like before Claire was officially on board.
She was on early. Yeah.
Denise's name I had done a photo shoot with a Latina photographer who had done a series of profiles on Latina creatives in LA. And I was like, yeah, I'm an actor, I'm a writer. We're starting to work to get this movie made. And she's like, oh, well, I just met this amazing Mexican-American female film score composer. Let me put you in touch. And so we had a meeting, and, it was really, really special to be able to have her on board. And in addition to the score, the soundtrack across the board was something that was really important to us. I feel like once we landed on Denise, Claire and her had more conversations about the actual sound of the movie. So you could probably speak to how you guys landed on that.
Yeah. So Denise and I, essentially, when Isabella and I were putting together the film, Isabella McCarthy is who cut the film, and we kind of worked very tightly in collaboration because she was in New York and I was here. So we were just swapping premiere profiles back and forth. But once our cut was getting kind of narrowed down, we had a lot of temp score in there, pulled from all over, like seriously pulled from horror films, you name it, it was in there. It was stuff from Stranger Things, kind of more eerie sounds were in there, more like ethereal, atmospheric stuff. It was all over the place. And temp scores are great, but they're very disjointed. There's not much like consistency. So I was so hungry to dive into devising a score with like a killer's kind of like theme and all that kind of stuff, and kind of picking out what instruments are going to be kind of in the world. So Denise brought a lot with me, really brought a lot to the project. She kind of took the overall feeling of the temp score, but like that was about it. Like she was not at all trying to copy anything. It was very much her own creation, and we just kind of worked together. She'd send me some files, I'd send notes, we'd have Zoom calls, and she just has a really great ear for this. I think her work is very beautiful, at the same time being, very at times chilling and referential to the genre. So she was definitely a perfect person for this thing. And then to round out the overall sound of the film, as they was saying, we got a lot of local bands in Chicago involved to have a really kick-ass score that's kind of like reminiscent of stuff like Jennifer's Body, like the kind of music that just feels like you're in high school. It feels like the kind of angsty, fun, can be rock, can be pop, it can be punk. It's a really fun kind of classic throwback soundtrack to go along with her score. And I think that complements each other really, really well. So that was really fun to create that.
I know, because I watch a lot of indie horror film. I watch a lot of horror film, period, but I watch a lot of indie stuff too. You always want to support independent and up-and-coming filmmakers. And one thing that is often something that stands out to the ear, even if it's kind of subconscious, is the music in it. Like, aside from score, because a good temp score or a good score pulled from a lot of places can serve your purpose well, because it's a little bit more under the skin. But when you're talking about those needle drops, you can tell, it can feel big
yeah.
state of elevating the finish of a movie that makes it feel really professional and big budget, which, you know, ours was obviously professional, but the budget wasn't very big. But luckily, you know, this was a love letter to Chicago. It was made in Chicago, and we had some really brilliant music supervisors, Night Smoke, who were connected to us by one of, you know, my days in Chicago in the film and the horror queer film scene. I had done a podcast called Daggercast, and one of the co-hosts, Lindsay Charles, is the lead singer in the band The Cell Phones, and the producer is Jared Olson, who's in Night Smoke, which is the duo that were our music supervisors. Mm-hmm. And Brian Kirst was the other co-host of the podcast, writes film theory as the big gay horror fan based in Chicago. So like early days, I'm talking like maybe 2019, they had me on as a guest, and I was talking about the project, and, you know, they were like, oh, that sounds cool. And, you know, kind of throwaway, I was like, you know, and the soundtrack, I want to have a lot of local Chicago bands and a really kick-ass soundtrack, like Claire was saying, like Jennifer's Body. And Lindsay was like, let me know. I'd love for the Cell Phones music to be on the score. And then Jared was like, you know, me and my buddy, we do this sort of thing. We'd love to work with you. We have connections with the Chicago indie music scene. So they did such amazing work in sourcing music that really brings this movie to life and makes it feel so polished and ties it to, like Claire was saying, the high school experience and the Chicago scene in such a really cool way. There's a playlist. Totally. I love the playlist. It's on Spotify. You can check it out.
It's on Spotify. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So where can everybody find you guys on social media to see what you're doing next, and where they can watch Departing Seniors?
Yeah. So we're all on social media. The best thing to follow is going to be Departing Seniors Movie, I believe it is the name of our Instagram handle. I'm checking right now to make sure.
It might be like at @departing_seniors.
I think, yeah, just @departing_seniors. But if you look in if you put in Departing Seniors, it'll pop up. But yeah, we are playing in select theaters coming up starting February 2nd. So we're playing in Los Angeles for a week at the Lemley in Glendale. We are playing in Chicago at the Music Box Theater for 2 nights, February 2nd and 3rd. We're playing in Columbus, Ohio. We're playing in Albuquerque, New Mexico. We're playing in Orange County, California. I think there might be a couple more that are going to be added as well coming up soon. So check our Instagram page for where you can see it theatrically, but it's also available to rent and buy beginning February 2nd on Apple TV. It'll also be out eventually on Prime and all that kind of stuff too. So it is dropping very soon, and we want everyone to come out and support it.
All right, so it's going to be shown in Columbus because I'm originally from California. I grow up and go back home, you know, twice a year, but I'm not that far from Columbus because I live in Cincinnati. I'm thinking about I'm going to go see it on the big screen, you know, just go and support.
Too.
I am to support it because, like, I'm like you guys. I love to support, you know, indie filmmakers and artists and actresses. Because you guys put the heart and soul in the films, you know, and then, you know, who knows, you may see these people and they may end up going up into the, you know, the mainstream films as well in the near future, like getting that one fine movie.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, no, I mean, first of all, yeah, if you have the chance, if it's playing at a theater near you, everyone should go out and see it because it's really fun to watch in the theater. I mean, I've watched this film so many freaking times, and I still find myself chuckling and smiling and enjoying it. I think the vibe of watching it in the theater is so much fun. You'll hear, like, the laughter's contagious. Like, you hear a couple gasps from people that have no clue, like, who the killer is, which is really always satisfying for me. So if you can, for sure, go see it. But just like, you know, Jose and I have been saying, it's an indie film in lots of ways, but it's also, I'm proud to say, like, the actors are just as good as acting can be. The cinematography is absolutely stunning. The soundtrack is kick-ass. Like, it's a really fun story. There's so much of it that kind of goes beyond your typical indie film. And I'm not saying that in a disparaging way. I just think, you know, thank goodness more and more indie films are kind of at this higher level. And I think ours is one of them. And really proud to be part of this kind of rising indie film scene, especially in horror. And so I think people will enjoy it. And just like Jose was saying, it's a very familiar and specific subgenre, the high school comedy slasher. So it's definitely a love letter to that if anyone's into that. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much for coming on. It was a blast.
Oh, thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
And everybody, thank you for listening to Horror Pop After Midnight.